Hello my fellow crafters, welcome to David's craft room. My name is David and, well, you don't see it, but I'm in my craft room. Welcome. Today I'm not going to be making a project with you, but we're going to do the first episode of a series I'm going to make, and that is the Design Space Basics. Now for this first episode of the Design Space Basics series, we're going to focus on shapes, because in my opinion, if you know how to work with shapes, you can do a lot of designing, basic designing in Design Space yourself. And it's really fun once you get the hang of it. I'm going to start with one thing, and that is how to insert a score line. And I can hear you think, score line? What does that have to do with basic shapes? That's exactly what I was thinking when I started out with the Cricut. I could for the life of me not add in a score line or add in a cut line for that matter. And that was just simply because I didn't know where to look for it. And then I figured out, hey, I clicked on shapes and then I saw at the bottom, I saw score line. If you click on shapes, you can see all the basic shapes you could possibly need, like square, circle, triangle, diamond, pentagon, etc. And score line. So let's click on score line and see what happens. Now we have a score line on our canvas. How do you know it is a score line? Because it's a line that is interrupted, and this is a score line. Now, with a score line, you can make it as big and small as you want. You can do that by using the arrow keys. Make it longer, make it shorter. You can change the height by entering in a specific height. So if we know something needs to be 10 centimeters, it's going to be 10 centimeters by changing it up there in the operation bar. But now, what if I don't want a score line, but what if I want to add in a cut line? We're coming to the operation panel here, and there you can change score to whatever line you want. A basic cut line, a wavy line, perforation line, draw lines, everything is in here. So if I change that to a cut line, a basic cut line, we can see it is just a plain line now, and the machine is going to cut. So this is how you add lines, whether it be cut lines, draw lines, or score lines to your project. We'll come back to that later on. But what we're going to do now, we're going to play with some shapes. I'm going to insert a square by clicking on square. Once you know it, it's so simple. Now I'm going to change the measurements of this because I want to turn this into a square card. Now I want to make a card that is 13 centimeters by 13 centimeters. Now I'm speaking in centimeters, but everything that I'm doing today will apply if you work in inches as well. Just use your preferred size card in inches, whether it's 7 inches or 10 inches, whatever. I'm working in centimeters. So I'm going to change my height to 13 centimeters, and my length of the card should be 26. Now, how do you create a rectangle? This is a question I saw in many of the Facebook groups. How do you make a rectangle? Because you can insert a square, but not a rectangle. That has everything to do with this lock over here. If you unlock this, you unlock the aspect ratio. So if I come up here now and type in a width of 26 centimeters and a height of 13, press enter, I have my basic shape of 26 centimeters by 13 centimeters high, and I have a rectangle. It's that easy. Now I want to add in a score line, because if I make a card, I want a score line smack down to the middle. So I'm coming back to shapes and insert a score line. Next, I know I want my score line to be 13 centimeters high. So I'm going to put my score line here, and I make that 13 centimeters high. And press enter. Now I want this to be perfectly in the middle. Now I can eyeball it or work with the grid that's on my canvas, which is very easy for a lot of things. We can do that very simply just by dragging over and selecting all. How do you select all? You click your mouse, you drag it over with your mouse pressed down. And now these two are selected. So my square and my score line are selected. So I'm coming to a line here at the top, click on a line and say align center. So now my score line is perfectly centered on my rectangle, and we can go ahead and make it. Hey, what's happening here? I'm getting two mats. My score line is on one and my rectangle is on the other. That's not good. There's a simple reason for that. It's because we still have to attach. So Design Space knows exactly that where we've put that score line, it has to operate it. So I'm going to select both again, click attach, and now it will be completely where we want it. Let's have a look. There we go. We have our rectangle with our score line right in the middle. This is how we want it. Now we can insert some more basic shapes to make this into a card. So I'm going to come to shapes, click on it, and I want a star. So I'm going to click on the star and pull that over to the front of my card, because this is the back of the card, this is the front of the card, depending on how you fold it, obviously. But if we're going to make a design on the front of the card, this is where we fold. We're going to fold this corner to that corner, so this is the front of the card. So I'm going to make my star bigger. Now you can do that up here in the size panel or just by pulling on the arrows. I'm going to visually place that in the middle of my card. And then I don't want this to be cut out. I want this to be drawn on. So I'm going to come here to my operation panel and click on pen. And I'm going to change the color, change my pen. I'm going to use a glitter pen and change it to silver. And now we have a silver star that's going to be written on my card. But we're not there yet. We first have to select everything again and hit attach. Now Design Space knows we all want this drawn together. So let's do that again. Come to shapes, hit on the star, bring that star in, visually center it. I want to change it to a pen. So I'm coming to basic cut, change to pen. I want it to be drawn with a glitter pen. So I'm coming to this square here where we can change the color. Come to glitter pen and click on silver. And we have a second silver star. Now let's add in one more. Come to shapes, star. Change the size of this a bit because this is too big now. I want this smaller because this is going to be in the center. Make it this tiny hair smaller again. I'm just eyeballing this. Come to basic cut in the operation part. Click on pen. Click on this square next to it to change the pen that I'm using. Make it to glitter gel and go to silver. I can see it's still too big, so I make it a tiny bit smaller. Center it. Just visually center it. There we go. Select all and hit attach. Now all of this is attached, and if I would click on make it, the machine will make it the way we want it. You can add text, there's a lot more you can do, but this is just to show you how simple it is with basic shapes to make a card. Okay, let's put this one to the side, because I'm going to show you one more. So I want to show you how to connect two shapes, and we're going to go to shapes and click on a octagon. Now I want my card to be 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters, for instance. So I'm going to change this to 10 centimeters. And because the lock is still locked, it will change both of them to the same length and height, or the width and height, I should say. 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters. Okay. Next, I'm going to duplicate this after I change the color. So I'm going to change the color and make it blue. Whatever. Next, I'm going to duplicate this. So I can do that by right-clicking and click on duplicate, or I can select it, go to my layers panel, and above it says duplicate, and hit duplicate. Now I'm going to put these two together, just eyeballing when they're touching, and they are. Select both by dragging over them with my mouse. They're both selected. I'm coming up here to align, and I want to align them center vertically. Now all sides are equal, and with both selected, I'm coming down and click on weld. Now this is one part, and now we just need to add a score line. So I'm coming back to shapes, click on score line. Here's our score line. Now I'm going to change the height of the score line just a bit so I can see it visually fits in there. I'm going to select all by dragging over it, come back to align and say align center. Now this is all aligned where I want it, and I can come back to the bottom over here on the right and click attach. Now Design Space will cut out the shape and score in the middle. Let's do that again. We're going to come to shapes, click on it. Now let's say I want a heart, click on a heart, change the color to dark red. Now we need two hearts, so I'm going to click on the heart, right click and go to duplicate, or come to the right and hit on duplicate above the layer panel. Now I have my two hearts. I'm going to overlap them just a bit. Select both, come to align, and again I want them to be aligned vertically in the center. So now these are perfectly aligned, and I'm going to hit weld. Again, now we have one layer, and we just need to add a score line. So again, we're going back to shapes, hit score line, come to the center, visually make it the right height, at least not as long as it was. Let me check. Yeah, that's fine. And then in what we did here, we selected and said align centrally. That's not what we can do now, because if we do that, the score line will end up over here. We don't want it scored there, we want it scored over here. So let's select all, go to the Align tab and see what we can use. Let's say we do center horizontally. Now the line is perfectly in the middle of these two hearts, and we can hit attach with all selected. And again, now we have our card. And you could, if you want to, combine these two and make a fun card that way, or something else, whatever. You do you. Okay, now there is one more thing that I wanted to show you. Now we have combined the same shape all over. But you can also combine different shapes. So let's say you want to make a house. Now a house is quite simple, right? How do you draw a house? How does a kid draw a house? We make a square. And we need a triangle. So we're going back to shapes and click on a triangle. Now I want my house to be, say, 8 centimeters wide and 8 centimeters high. I need my roof to be 8 centimeters wide. So I'm typing that in, and please note that the aspect ratio, the lock, is still locked. So it will change the height as well. Now I come down, combine the two, make sure that they are touching, just a hair down. There we go. I'm going to select them both, come to align and say align center horizontally. It will put it all together. And then with both selected, I'm coming down to weld. And here is our basic house. So I'm going to make another one. Click on square. And I'm going to click on a triangle. So go to shapes, click on triangle. There we go. Now this time I want my house to be smaller. So I'm going to say 7 centimeters by 7 centimeters. The lock is still locked. So Design Space will make this 7 by 7 on its own. Then I want the triangle to be slightly different. So I'm going to unlock my aspect ratio. Now I know my square is 7 centimeters, right? I want my triangle to be 7 centimeters wide as well. But I want the height to be different. I want the height to be, let's say 4 centimeters. This will give us a completely different shape of triangle. Put it on the square, select both, align, center horizontally, bring it down a hair, select both, and click on weld. Now we have a smaller house. Now say you want to make sort of a village. You can put these two together, just the same way we did with the triangle. Select all and come back to align again. And say align bottom. Now it's perfectly aligned and we can weld these two together. And this is the start of a small village. We'll come back to this idea in a later video, but for now I think it is enough. So we've made quite some different shapes. We started off with just a square card that we put on some stars, but it could be a really fun card. Then we made another sort of card with hectagons. We made a card with hearts, and we started off a Christmas village with houses. And all of this is done with the same principle of basic shapes and combining shapes and adding score lines. Once you get these basics down, Design Space will become more and more your friend. Have a go with it, play with it. You don't always have to make your projects. And remember, there's always this button where you can undo what you just did. So if you mess up, hey, all that's wasted is your time, and you can only learn by doing it. That's my experience. You learn by doing it. Practice makes perfect. So it's a new skill. You can't expect to do a new skill within 5 minutes. So thank you for watching. I hope you learned something today. I'm going to be back with more episodes in our Design Space Basics series. So come back for that. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of them. And I'll see you for the next one. Thank you for watching. Bye.